Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a very special episode of Powercast. And today we're going to be talking about Raising Kanan Season 2, uh, as we have actually seen some of the show. So I'm your host, Richard Billy Jr., and today I'm joined by Miss Dana Abercrombie. How's it going, Dana?
It is going wonderful. Happy to be here. It felt like 20 years.
Yes, we've been away for quite some time. For those of you that have been following the channel, you know that we obviously covered Power Force as well as Book Two Ghost. And Gary and I was covering Snowfall. We did take a bit of a break because other things were happening in life, but we will be back to cover this show because it is airing on Stars on August 14th. And yes, Gary will be back. It just so happens that he's not here today, but we definitely will be back to covering this show as soon as it returns. So we wanted to, however, talk about what we have seen so far because Stars was gracious enough to send us the first 4 episodes of this upcoming season. So we wanted to give a few thoughts. Now, I want to let y'all all know that there will be no spoilers in this discussion because we are not allowed to talk about certain things. But I will just say this. If you want to hear our thoughts on the episode, as you know, we always break down these episodes. Definitely make sure you come back to the channel. August 14th will also be available on Spotify and all the other audio streaming platforms as well. So just to give you a heads up. But going into Raising Kanan Season 2, I'm going to go to you first, Dana, and I want to get what are your thoughts on what's happening in the show right now?
So, right now, we have kind of, I would like to call it a rebirth of things. The summer is over. You had your opportunity to either go through rehab, go to Virginia and clear your mind and learn what it's like to just kind of sit in your thoughts for the summer and kind of decide what kind of direction you want your life to now go into. When we meet some of the characters, such as Kanan, who we all knew from the end of the finale, he was sent to go live with his aunt. We do know that it was in the Virginia area, and during that time, it was to keep him safe. So you're dealing a lot with that. We do know that Omar, at the very end of season one, he was shot. Presumably, we don't know whether or not he's alive, but he was shot by Kanan under kind of Raquel's orders, and we have to figure out what's going on with that situation. Remember, on top of that, he was also going through cancer and he needed a bone marrow treatment. We have the situation with Unique. Unique was sent to jail for presumably being the one who shot Omar, even though we know what really happened. And then we have the Lulu and Marvin situation, the two brothers, where one really wants to pursue music and the other one, still bickering with Raquel, wants to still be in the kind of the drug dealing life. So now that we've had this break, we're going to see a lot of opportunities where our characters kind of change course somewhat. Not always, but they change course, and there is a feeling that security that, say, Kanan had before in regards to knowing what he wants to pursue, knowing he wants to go out there and protect his mother. When you get a sense of not being able to do that, and when you get a sense of just being a kid, because after all, this is Kanan when he's a teenager. He's still a kid, fun things like going to the beach and just hanging out and having ice cream and talking to your friends without having to worrying about who's selling what, who's trying to kill whom, or trying to make this money, but just having kind of no responsibilities. You kind of sit and realize what is it that it matters and what doesn't matter to you. So we're going to see that a lot when it comes to this episode. Also, I want to touch upon Jukebox. We know that her girlfriend, very sad, died of a drug overdose. It was laced, probably with the fentanyl, as I believe. And her kind of having to deal with that guilt and blaming herself. And we're going to see what she does with that pain and how she's able to channel it, whether or not it's for good or for bad. Then you have, of course, Raquel, who, now that Kanan's in the way, because she loves him very much. But when you don't have to sit and worry every single second about someone, you're able to fully invest your attention on what it is that you want to do. And for Raquel, we know that's the drug business, and we know that is becoming the queen pin of drug dealing. And by being able to fully invest herself into that, how far she's able to rise to the top. We last saw her at the very end, she was sitting on the roof, kind of looking over, kind of like a queen looking over her kingdom. So we see whether or not that kingdom is still continuing to grow or whether or not it's going to fall. So we're dealing a lot with that, and we're also dealing a lot of with revenge. We have the whole situation again with Unique, him coming out of jail, or maybe he's still in jail, but he does want revenge, and how he goes about doing that. And also, there are going to be some family extensions. We're going to get to learn more about whose backstory, such as maybe Jukebox or maybe of the other brothers or the other cousins, and see how everyone fits into the huge overall arching pit of family that is the Stark family. So I will say that this was very exciting. It felt like we didn't skip a beat. The writing is still right on par. The acting is still acting, and it just seems to have raised the bar a lot bit compared to what we saw in season one. And I will say that the theme overall is one of these characters is a pure psychopath. I couldn't choose whether or not it was a psychopath or just plain a sociopath. Uh, but I have some issues with Raquel coming into this, but they're good issues because it's written so well. I'm like, this woman scares me.
Uh, I agree. Now, let me start by saying yes, those were excellent takeaways as always. Um, and I think that you used the perfect word to describe that it does feel like it's a bit of a rebirth. So, obviously, without giving away any details, I will just say for those that did watch season one, you know that there are certain consequences that must come as a result of everything that happened at the end of that season. And it does feel as though, as you said, the story continues right from that beat. Obviously, we'll get to learn more details about what's happening. As far as Unique situation, we already know that Unique had nothing to do with what happened to Howard. So we'll find out more details about what happens next for Unique. Um, for Raquel, we did see that last season she had her relationship with Symphony and was struggling with this whole situation of whether or not she wanted to be with Symphony or she wanted to continue to take up the mantle and continue being the queen pin that she is. And we know that in that season, what she chose because of certain things that happened to her family that made her concerned, she decided, okay, I need to keep doing this. So we'll obviously see that evolve, I would say, as we go into season two, because she wanted all the power. She has all the power. You think Unique is not there. Now she has even more power. But to what extent and how that evolves, we definitely will find out more about that. As for Kanan, we know that Kanan went through a lot of crazy things in the first season. Obviously, coming into this season, if you've seen the trailers, you may feel as though maybe Kanan has some doubt within himself about what's going to happen next. And hopefully, we will get some answers to that. Now, again, I will reiterate that we did see the first 4 episodes. So there's a lot that happens in those first 4 episodes, but this is a season that consists of 10 episodes. So I'm very curious to see what happens in those next 6 episodes because, again, I feel like we've only really touched the surface of what they've been able to do in the first 4 episodes. But to quote Dana as to what she said, I can tell you right now, I agree with everything she said. The writing is still on par, it's still excellent. The acting is excellent. The performances are excellent. Um, and as far as the question of whether or not this is the best Power spinoff, I know when we reviewed season one, we said that it was possibly the best Power spinoff. And then, of course, then we had Power Force, which is a show that you all know that we didn't really have too many high. We didn't really like the show that much. But again, we like Tommy as a character. But as far as going into this season, I still think it is definitely one of the better spinoffs of Power. Um, we'll have to see what happens when we get into Power Book 2 Ghost Season 3, because that is going to be also coming up later this year. But overall, yes, if you enjoyed the first season of Raising Kanan, you're definitely going to enjoy the second season, I would say. And again, what I like about the show is the way is the 90s feel to it, because it does take place in the 90s. And you think about it, everything that they do in this show, down to the music, down to the what everybody is wearing as far as their attire, all of that is taken into consideration. So this is why I say the show really does a very good job of capturing that era and making it very much unique, pun intended, as opposed to the other shows. So definitely something to look forward to for sure. Um, so I'm trying to think of any other questions that I want to talk about with this season that we can talk about. Um, Go ahead, Dana. You're muted. Go ahead.
Time I say Omar, I meant Omar Epps is in Howard. So I'm like, Omar. And people are like, who the heck is Omar? It's Howard.
Yes, yes. Um, Howard. Well, we'll see what happens with Howard going into season two.
There are
Obviously,
some.
we'll go ahead.
No, I'm going to say, it's not perfect in the sense that one of my biggest pet peeves are we set up a situation and then magic happens. So we can no longer be concerned about that situation that we've drawn out of the entire season.
Oh yeah.
I don't like magical fixes. I
So
hate that.
I agree. Uh, we'll talk more in detail about what exactly that is. So I definitely would implore everybody to come back to check out the next PowerCast episode. But I will say that I agree 100%. I know I had an issue with that. I did also speak to our very good friend Gary about it, and we definitely will have a lot to say about that particular thing. But I will say this though, the season, what they're doing with the storytelling right now, it's very good. It's setting up a lot of big events, big things to happen as we go deeper into the season. And I think that we know how Kanan, how ruthless Kanan was on the regular Power series. So after you see that, and you see how this season starts, this it feels like very much like a turning point for Kanan. Like he can decide to go in a different direction if he wants to, but we know that things do not end well for the character. So I would imagine that there's a lot of really bad things that are going to happen to Kanan before this season's over, and that's going to shape who he eventually becomes. What those things are, I have no idea. We have to wait and see. But it's
But it
definitely a
is.
lot to look. And I also will say the same for Jukebox. I would imagine that she's probably going to go through some stuff as well. So, but continue. Go ahead, Dana.
No, I was gonna say it is refreshing because they could have easily made Kanan one note because we
Mm-hmm.
know how Kanan ends up. But instead, there are so many layers and complexities to his character, especially with this year of him trying. Remember, again, at the end of the day, Kanan is still a kid. He may do adult things, but he's still mentally a kid.
Mm-hmm.
There was a part in episode one where we see him being a kid, having conversations with kids and blending right in because he's a kid. So I do appreciate the different layers and the complexities that they decided to take with the character instead of just making it one note. They could have easily been like, this is Kanan, we know Kanan from 50 Cent Kanan, and just have him all the way through. Instead, he's learning, he's growing, he's coming into himself, he's being insecure. He is not that secure, we're going to take this man out type of guy that we've known from the Ghost days, from the Power original series.
Mm-hmm.
This is a kid who's like, I'm not sure. I'm feeling uncertain about this. And it's about many different things. And then there are things where there are revelations that he ends up discovering or told to him that completely changes his perspectives on things. And so it's a slow growth into the Kanan that we know. And I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate the slow way. It feels more natural. Um, how they took this character. And also the relationship between Kanan and his mother. Again, can't have one without the other. And you would say, in a weird way, they during the summer, because they didn't show what happened really during the summer, but you can just kind of see in through attitudes. There was a certain refreshingness to Kanan when he's not with his mother, when he was allowed to breathe, when he was
Mhm.
allowed to just go on vacation and be with his family. And there's a complete transformation when he starts going back into the city and going back into the life that he had in the city. You see two different characters. There's a flip, there's a switch that happens. And so it's really interesting how to see that Kanan is able to code switch. And I don't mean just with words, but also in his body language, how he addresses people. It's really very layered to how they made Kanan, and I really appreciate that. And also with the mother, her not having Kanan with her, you truly see what her nature is. It's the complete opposite of what Kanan's natural nature is, and that
Mhm.
is ruthless and cold hearted. And I don't really believe there is a switch point for her. You could say, what about, she cares very deeply about Kanan, but at the same time, the root of the character that we've even seen in season one is manipulative and will get her way no matter what, no matter who she has to uh, manipulate in order for that to happen. And that can be people who are very close to her or people
Mhm.
who she has no connections with. And that by her kind of being that way, you kind of really see the differences of how Kanan is compared to his mother, but how you see slowly, you would say, grow into being his mother. So it's like, what if your mother was a sociopath? Do you nurture versus nature? It really this season is about nurture versus nature, and
Mhm.
how your foundation can kind of destroy the person who you could have been.
I agree. I agree. Um, Very good points. Uh, and one other quick thing I do want to mention real quick, and in regards to the rest of the Stark family, we do know that last season Lulu got into the music business with Mr. Camacho, uh, and of course Crown Camacho was his name. But we know that they had some issues last season because of how they operating, and you know that Lulu was the one that was basically investing all the money into this operation. So you're going to continue to see how that relationship continues to have some issues here and there going into season two. And also with Marvin, who is, by the way, Gary's favorite character from last season. We know that Marvin had a very, very heated exchange with Jukebox last season. I know we spoke about it, and a lot of people was talking about that from that particular episode. So we're going to see what happens as a result of that. We also saw that Marvin, he got himself into a little bit of trouble with the police at the end of last season. So we'll get a better idea of what's happening with that character now. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier in this particular discussion, there are consequences to actions. So you can imagine that because of what happened with him and Jukebox, maybe they might not be on the best of terms, or maybe they are. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But I can tell you that everything as far as how the storyline progresses, it feels very natural with the characters. Uh, but like you said earlier, Dana, it's like as soon as the show returned, it felt like we were right back starting point. There was like no time missed. So for those who did like season one, you're definitely in for a treat with season two. Based off of the first four episodes, I can say that I very much enjoyed it. I definitely still think this is one of the better spinoffs of all the Power shows, and looking forward to seeing where things go from here. But on that note, Dana, you have any other thoughts you wanted to say as we get ready to wrap up this discussion?
Yeah, just really quickly about Jukebox. Jukebox was lost in season one,
Mm-hmm.
and that fight that she had with Marvin really just kind of broke everything. Also coupled with the death of her girlfriend,
Mm-hmm.
so that really broke her. And when she's someone who's lost, they're gonna go out and try to find a foundation, um, no matter what. And so she's very determined for something or someone to belong to. And so when you see her choice in the original Power series, we do know that she does become an officer. I don't know if it's a detective, but she does become a police officer.
Yeah.
And we do know, how she reaches her demise and the original Power,
Mm-hmm.
you can kind of see that it lays the foundation on where she ends up finding her foundation in without any kind of spoilers. So again, it follows the blueprint of what happens, not necessarily what happens to her in the original Power, but it lays out that groundwork to explain why she may end up going in a certain field that she does.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also what I really love about this, because again, she's a teenager. They did not have to put these little seeds in her at all. They could have made
Exactly.
a completely different character, some stuck up girl in I don't know, Westchester, um, who had a perfect life and everything. But they did not do that. They planted the seeds of where the character will end up in the future. And it's really nice to just kind of follow that trail to see where it leads up to. And again, anything is possible. Again, because they took these kids when they were teenagers.
Mm-hmm. I agree 100%.
So
Absolutely.
for me overall, it's really really great what they did. They touch upon, what happens when the life that they chose. There's really no days off. So that's one of the things they touch upon. They touch upon, never being comfortable in your situation, which is really hard for, especially you're dealing with teenagers. You're also
Mm-hmm.
dealing with adults, but also for teenagers. And that, the truth is going to slowly start to get you eventually. So secrets from the first season will kind of seep into the second season, and I just really like what they did.
I agree. I agree. Um, and overall, I will say, yeah, I do like the direction of that the show is going in. Um, Very curious to see where things go, especially after episode 4. But definitely even more excited for people to see the first 4 episodes. For those that are fans, they definitely, I think they will be satisfied with the direction of what's happening. Um, but yeah, like I said, great start to the season. Looking forward to seeing what happens next. And if you are a Razor Kanan fan and a Powercast fan, definitely make sure you come back August 14th. We'll have a breakdown of episode 1, and we go right all the way up until the season finale. And then, of course, we'll be covering the other Power shows as well. So definitely stay tuned. So before we get out of here, any shout outs that you would like to give, Dana, on your end?
Shout out to you guys for being awesome, and we have a lot of content that's coming up. We just did the Television Critics Association. The very first round just ended. We got 20 more rounds to go. So we're watching shows and everything else. We have up. I'm currently in the month of November, so we will have a lot of content in regards to interviews and what TV shows and reviews and movies that are coming up. So yeah, we have some things that are in the pot that's cooking and stirring.
Absolutely. Sounds great to me. And I also want to thank you all for, your continued support of the channel. Feel free to like this video, leave your comments. Let us know if you're looking forward to season 2 of Razor Kanan, but also let us know if there's any other shows that are coming up that you would like to see us cover in the future, because we definitely like to hear your feedback as well. But overall, definitely looking forward to coming back and doing Powercasts August 14th. Make sure you come right back here. And as I mentioned earlier, we will still be on iTunes, Spotify, and all other streaming platforms. But we look forward to talking more about Razor Kanan. And I do want to give a shout out to Stars for giving us the opportunity to get a look at the show a little bit earlier as well. But yes, thank you all for your continued support. Take care, and we will talk to you very soon.
Bye, guys.